This conference will now be recorded.
So, in today's session, we'll discuss about the importance of software architecture and the servers and different types of architecture. The entire architecture, three-tier or two-tier architectures, which are very important to understand from a performance tester perspective. And also, we'll see the performance testing life cycle. Uh, so to begin with, the importance of software architecture. Uh, okay, let's assume that we have some application, wherein we need to log in. Okay, we have an application where we need to log in by giving valid username and password. Okay, let's assume I have given a valid username and password here, and then I clicked on submit. So, what if the application is slow? So what if I'm getting the response time as 1 minute or 2 minutes? In yesterday in our last class we have discussed that industry standard of any request, the response time should be 2 minutes, 2 seconds, sorry. So what if the application is slow and if I'm getting response time in 1 or 2 minutes? That means you know that means there is an issue in the application,
Hello,
right?
hello.
Yeah, please tell me.
Actually, can others please can go on during I'm getting so.
Or else I'll mute everyone, right?
Uh,
Yeah, I muted everyone. If there is anything you want to ask me, or you can ping me in the chat so that I can unmute again.
okay.
So now I'm getting response time as 1 minute or 2 minutes. That means there is some issue in the application, right? Okay, and yeah. So the reason could be there is an issue in the application. Okay, so whatever the issues, because of which this login process is slow, that we call it as bottleneck. Okay, so going forward, we'll use this term bottleneck, and as a front end user, by just giving the username and password and clicking on submit, and if the response time is one minute, the response is too slow. But what can I do from front end? I cannot understand what is happening at the back end. What is happening in the back end, I don't know, right? So I need to go beyond that. uh, by just looking at the front end, I cannot tell what is happening, why the response time is very slow. I need to look into the architecture, and then only I can see where exactly it is taking time. Okay, so that's why I'm saying to identify the bottleneck, we need to understand the architecture of the software application. Without understanding the software application, it is very hard, to tell what is the exact issue. So for any performance tester, to begin his work as a performance tester, for example, if you are a performance tester and if you are getting an application to performance test to performance test, then what you should understand is, you should understand the architecture first. Then only you can you can then only you should start the application, the workload modeling, the test plan, and scripting and execution, and then only all these activities will follow. The basic thing you need to understand you need to understand the architecture first. Okay, so when I say architecture, the client, whatever he's trying to enter username, password, and clicking on submit, the backend there will be servers, the web server, the application server, and the database server. The request will flow from one server to another server, and the response will also come back from one server back forth. Okay, so on a high level, we should understand first what is a server. Okay, we should understand what is a server. So a server could be any program or any software which can understand so a software which can understand our request and then process the request and then send the response back. Okay, these three are very important, you know, in understanding this concept of server. These three statements are very much important, you know. Understand our request, process the request, and then send the response back. Okay, let's assume this is a client. Let's assume this is a client from where we are sending the request. Okay, and let's assume this is a server, no, okay, which is processing our request and then sending the response back. Okay, so this is our software, you know, or the client, you know, from where the request is sent, and this is the hardware, and you know where the request is processed, and then you know the response is sent to client. Okay, so now any software, you know, which is capable of doing the above is called a server. Okay, so if anything, any request is coming to us, you know, coming to the server, if it is able to process the request, if it is able to understand the request first, if it is able to process, then if it is able to send the response back, then we can call it as server. Okay, but you know, the server, the software alone, you know, cannot run on its own, right? So it should host, it should be on some, it should be run with the help of some hardware. Okay, it should be run with the help of some hardware. Okay, then only it will run. For example, if I give you MS Office you know, software to run, will it run on its own? No, right? You have to install, you know, you have to install on your laptop, or you know, you have to install on your desktop, you know, which is nothing but, you know, the hardware as well, the combination. Okay, so the combination of this particular software and hardware, you know, together we call it as server. Okay, so in this server terminology and all, you know, you need to understand the types of architecture as well. You know, there are different types of architecture, like, you know, 2-tier, 3-tier, and n-tier architecture. But you know, I'm assuming that, you know, we all are aware of those architectures, but anyhow, I'll explain it. So for example, you know, there is a client. Okay, there is a client, and you know, there is a web server, you know, there is an app server, and you know, there is a DB server. This could be the structure of the entire architecture. Okay, this could be the structure of entire architecture. Okay, and we also have that 3-tier and 2-tier architecture, right? So what will happen in the entire architecture, guys? Anyone has any idea what will happen? What will happen in this web server? What will happen in this app server? App server is nothing but the application server. What will happen in the DB server? Anyone has any idea? Okay, so from the client, you know, the request will go to web server. Okay, and you know, and then you know, it forwards the request to the application server, you know, where the actual code resides. Okay, the actual code resides. For example, if my application is HDFC Bank application, you know, I'll be having so many app servers. Okay, where my actual code, the backend code, the server side code will reside. Okay, and all the data related to this application will reside in the database server. Okay, and what will the web server do? You know, it will just, you know, build the site for us. It will build the HTTP content for us. Okay, so for example, you know, if when I said, you know, in the initial page, you know, the importance of architecture, when I told you we are giving some user ID and password and then clicking on submit, and you know, if it is taking 1 minute time, you know, how to debug, then you need to understand this kind of architecture with respect to your application office project. Okay, then you need to understand, you know, how the request is flowing from one component to another, one server to another server, where exactly that there is a delay. For example, if the request is going from client to web server to app server, and app server to DB server, okay, and you know, there is a delay, you know, the app server is processing the request in 0.5 seconds. Okay, but you know, the DB server is taking 1 or 2 minutes to process the request and send the response back. Okay, then we need to understand, you know, then we need to understand, you know, what is that what is the query which is taking time. Okay, what is the query which is taking time, then we need to drill on to that level. But you know, how will we know, you know, which component or which server is taking time? Then we'll have, there comes, you know, the APM tools, the monitoring tools, like, you know, Dynatrace, AppDynamics, and all. So using those tools, you know, we'll go and see, you know, where exactly there is a delay. what is causing the issue, which query or which method or which request is causing the issue. So we need to debug in that process. Okay. So in order to debug, you need to understand the architecture. Without understanding the architecture, you cannot find the root cause. You cannot find the issue, you cannot find the bottleneck. Okay, so this is kind of entire architecture. But to just give the information about how the 3-tier architecture looks like, in the 3-tier architecture, the web server and app server can be a single machine. Okay, the web server and app server can be a single machine. There could be a client, and there could be a web server app server machine on the same machine, and then we can have the DB server. Also in the in some of the projects, there will be a 2-tier architecture only. There will be only one client and there will be only one server, which means that all the application server content, business logics and everything, database, everything will reside in only one server there. So that's the 2-tier architecture. Okay, but as the demand is increasing, and one server is not able to process all the requests, this entire architecture came into picture. And within this entire architecture also, for example, if this app server is not able to fulfill the request, if this app server is taking too much burden, then we can add additional app server. We can add in the same way we can add additional web servers and additional DB servers as well. It all depends on the number of data, or the number of data that is being processed. How many requests are coming from the client? If the number is too huge, and if your app server or if your any of the server is not able to process the request, then you can add additional server. Okay, so here the concept, it is very important, that if your server is not able to handle the request, and and if you are adding another servers, if you're adding additional servers, then that concept is called scale out. And the concept is called scale out. When we add additional servers, then it is called scale out. Okay, so and in some cases, we can upgrade the same server as well. Instead of adding the new server, instead of adding the new server, if they think that the upgrading the existing server can fulfill the issue, then fix the issue, they can upgrade the existing server only, like the RAM, and the processor configurations. If they upgrade these things, then it can fulfill our request. Actually, it can process our request. So when we upgrade the existing server, then it is called scale up. Okay, so remember this terminology. It is very important from interview perspective as well. They can ask you, what is scale out, what is scale up, and everything. So when we add additional servers, then it is called scale out. When we upgrade the existing server, then it is called scale up. Okay, and in any interview, this is one of the important questions which will be definitely asked. They'll ask you, what kind of architecture, what is your architecture, what is the architecture of your project. So you should be in a position to explain the architecture. And okay, so now we are good with some high level information about the different types of architecture, what is scale out, scale up, and everything. Now we'll see some we'll see what is protocol actually. So let's assume there is one client. Okay, let's assume there is one client, and there is a server, and the request is going from client to server. Okay, there is a request is going from client to server. Actually here it should be web server, but I have together wrote it as server. So let's assume the request is going to this server, and from the client, but the server should understand what the client is sending, right? The server should understand what the client is sending. Okay, based on that, when it understands what client is sending, then only it can process the request, right? So how will the server understand what the client is sending? What the client will be sending some request. So how will the server understand it? There should be some rules. Actually, there should be some rules, which both the client and server should follow. And based on that rules only the request has to be sent, and based on that only the server will process the request. So those set of rules we call it as protocol. Okay, in general also protocol means some set of rules only. So here in our software terminology also, okay, the protocol is also same set of rules. Okay, for example, we have we can see protocol is nothing but some set of rules, and depending on the kind of communication required between client and server, protocol is selected by architect. So there are different types of protocols, right, which LoadRunner will support. Okay, and in fact, LoadRunner is the only tool which will support almost all the protocols. Other tools are supporting only a few protocols actually, but microfocus protocol, microfocus LoadRunner, and it will support almost all the protocols. So I'm giving here some of the examples of protocols like HTTP, HTTPS, FTP, and SMTP. HTTP and HTTPS is completely related to web application. Okay, so completely related to web application. This is very important. Protocol is very important from a performance perspective, because when you there will be so many protocols, right? If you go to any interview, they'll ask you, on how many protocols have you worked. We should be able to tell earlier at least two, like HTTP, and something like web services, and something like Citrix or SAP, something like that. So so this protocol concept is very important. So any web application will be using HTTP HTTPS protocol. So if there if there is only any file transfer happening between client and server, okay, this server can process only files. Okay, the file is request for file is sent, and the response is sent back. Then if it is called FTP, file transfer protocol, and SMTP, simple mail transfer protocol. It's all related to emails. So depending on the kind of communication required between client and server, the protocol is selected by architect. Okay, but this is from developer perspective I'm saying. But from performance system perspective, we need to understand the architecture. We need to understand the mechanism, communication mechanism. Okay, before we select the protocol, before we record the script, while recording the script, we will select the protocol, right? So while selecting the protocol, how should we ensure which protocol to select? It all depends on the kind of application. So we need to understand the architecture. We need to understand the communication mechanism. We need to speak to developers, and then we need to come to a conclusion that okay, this is core web application. Okay, I can go ahead with web HTTP protocol, right? So this is all about the servers, the architectures, and the protocols and all. I thought of giving the list, how many applications, how many protocols this LoadRunner support and all. I have that list. I'll send it across, or else I'll share it again and later tomorrow or day after tomorrow. I thought of comparing LoadRunner, the protocol supported by LoadRunner with the protocol supported with by other tools. Okay, so that's all for the architecture, software architecture, and the server, the entire architecture and the protocol. Any questions till now with respect to this, the servers and the architecture and the protocol?
So I just wanted to check, like, if in situation, what is the major architecture we are using in?
No, it depends on the project. It depends on your project actually.
Hello.
Yeah.
How much time it will take client to server for taking the protocol?
Your voice is not clear. Can you ask the question again?
How much time it will take request from client to server?
It should be in a fraction of a second. Actually, the time,
Fraction.
fraction of seconds it should reach, because when we are saying that the industry standard for any response time is only 2 seconds, that what is the
Yeah.
response time? What is the meaning of response time? Response time is nothing but the round trip, the
Round trip.
time taken for the round
Yeah.
trip. Yeah. So the request, starting point of the request, going all the way from one server to another server, and then coming back to client again. So everything should happen within fraction of seconds. Okay. So now, as we discussed, about this, we'll move ahead, and we'll discuss the performance testing life cycle as well. Okay. So we call it as performance testing life cycle, and we can also say it as the process usually followed in performance testing project. Okay. And we can also term it as the roles and responsibilities in your performance testing project. Okay. In your interview, they can ask you any of these in any of these three ways. They can directly ask you, what could be a performance test, what is the performance testing life cycle and all. If you are any 3 to 5 years of experience, or experience, they'll ask you on a high level that what is the performance testing life cycle, or the roles and responsibilities in your current project, or something like the process usually you will follow in your performance testing project, right? So the for developers there is software development life cycle, but for functional testers we have software testing life cycle, STLC. In the same way, for performance testers we have performance testing life cycle, PTLC. This PTLC is more or less similar to STLC. Okay, this PTLC is more or less similar to PTLC. All the stages in the PTLC is almost similar to STLC. But for clear understanding, I have named it as as the sequence which is displayed there. So the first thing is POC, the proof of concept. Okay, the first thing is nothing but the proof of POC, which is nothing but proof of concept. So as part of POC, what we try is we try to understand the application architecture. Okay, what kind of application is this? Which technology they use to develop this application? Which communication mechanism they use to develop this application? When I say communication mechanism, it is nothing but the protocol. Okay, and we also understand the complexity of the application. Okay, and then once identifying all this, then I'll try to identify which tool is compatible. Basically, if I'm getting any new application, when I'm getting new application, and if I'm doing some POC, then by understanding the architecture, by understanding some basic functionality, then I should identify which tool is compatible for this application, right? If there is already a tool existing, and if there is already tool existing, if there is already a project, and if the project is coming for enhancement, you can go ahead and use the same tool. But if there is any new application which is coming, and when you're doing a POC, then you need to consider other tools as well, which tool is better for the application. Okay, so if it is load runner, if you think that load runner is compatible, then sure which protocol is compatible for this application. Okay, so then as part of POC, what would you generally do? Not only performance testing, in your automation testing as well. I assume that you have some idea about automation testing. So when it comes to automation testing, if it's a Windows based application, then people will generally go for UFT or QTP or something, because Selenium supports only web applications. Basically Selenium supports only browser automation. Okay, so depending on the kind of project, we will select the tools, right? So generally what we'll do as part of performance testing also, we try to record all those simple business scenarios, and execute with minimal users, and then and report the response times to client. So based on that, the client will take, and client and performance testing team together will take a decision, and they'll go for a tool. Okay, this I have added in the first stage of the life cycle actually. And then comes the NFR. Okay, and then comes the NFR. NFR is nothing but the non-functional requirements. Okay, and we have to prepare this NFR document with the help of business analyst people or the project team people. Okay, and the same is the case with the functional testers as well. They have the functional requirements document. They call it as SRS, I guess, if I'm not wrong. So in the same way, we have the non-functional requirements, right? So this non-functional requirements document, basically contains all the details like, the critical business transactions, the peak hours, and the expected load, everything. We have to gather what kind of tests we are supposed to perform, okay? And after preparing this NFR document, we have to get it approved by the project team and the architects and all the stakeholders, right? Like the manual or the functional testers do. We have to get it approved by all the stakeholders here. Okay, so actually this NFR concept, is a separate session for us actually, where we have to discuss, there are 3 different scenarios actually, but I would like to discuss it today only. We'll see that. So we'll discuss NFR in detail now. Okay, let's assume generally what will we gather as part of NFR requirements, or what will you gather as part of functional requirements in your functional testing project? If any one of you are from functional testing background, can you just tell, what will you gather in the functional requirements?
We will mostly look into the modules, how many modules we have, and what is the use cases, and what is the core functionality of the application. And
Okay.
we will be considering like what type of application is this, and if we have any queries, and we will be raising those as ambiguities.
Okay, so in the same way, in non-functional requirements, with respect to performance testing, we try to gather some information. We'll set up a call with the business team and the client, and we'll ask for some details like, what are the servers, what is the architecture of this application, on which technology it was using which technology it was developed, what are the protocols, the communication mechanism you followed, and then what are those web servers. In the previous slides, we discussed about web server and application server, right? Can anyone of you tell, what are the examples of those web servers and application server? As anyone of you have any idea about those? That is very important actually with respect to interviews. So when you are attending any interviews, when you explain the architecture, when you say that, okay, my this is my architecture, this is the web server, this is the app server, and we have one web server, we have one app server, and all. Then he'll immediately ask you, what is a web server? What is that app server? Which app server you people have used, or which web server? Then then we have web servers like Tomcat, Apache Tomcat, and then we have application servers like WebLogic, and WebSphere, like that. So you need to keep this information handy with you while you're going for interviews. Okay, so in the same way, as part of this NFR also, we'll ask you what are those web servers, and we'll also ask them what are the critical business transactions that we have to test for performance testing. Whatever the functional team is testing or the manual team is testing, we cannot test all those test cases as part of performance testing. We will only select those critical business transactions. Okay, those critical business transactions will be given by business team only. Okay, and also as part of NFR, apart from critical business transactions, they will give us the expected load also, for how many users we have to test each of these business transactions. For example, there are 3. They assume that they have given 3 critical business transactions to test. So how many users should I go with? For critical business transaction 1, I mean test case 1, how many users? For test case 2, how many users? For test case 3, how many users? So they have to provide this information. Without all this information, we cannot start our the test plan or the workload model, and or the scripting or anything, we have to get this information, for how many users have to test it. That is very much important, and all that we have to get as part of NFR only. Okay, so let's assume, in as part of this NFR, uh, what is your approach? What is your approach to gather this non-functional requirement? For example, if the client, if the client does not know anything about performance testing, okay, as a performance tester, because I am the performance tester, and I have client has given me the application, to test it, but you know but the client does not know anything about performance testing. The client does not know anything about performance testing. But what I told you, but I should get the number of users or the expected load from the client. But in my scenario, what I'm discussing now is the client does not know anything about performance testing. So from where will he give them the number of users data, or the how many users we have to test and all, right? So in this case, if the client does not know anything about performance testing, and the approach that as a performance tester to gather non-functional requirements is, we have to segregate into three scenarios here. For example, the first one is if the application is already in production. Okay, if the application is already in production, if the application is already in production, and there are some enhancements to be made, and now it has come for performance testing. Now, because it is already in production, now the approach that as a performance tester to gather non-functional requirements is, first we try to get the production logs. Actually, we try to get the production logs for the first 1 year, or at least 6 months. Okay, using some analytical tools like Splunk, Splunk, or using normal database queries. We'll try to identify, on which month, on which day, there were more transactions happened. Okay, more number of visitors accessed your application. Okay, how many number of page views are happening. Okay, how many number of page views are happening, and then based on visitors, you can identify the users. For example, in the last 6 months, I have to take if I have searched my application production data, and I found out that, and in the month of February, in the month of on February 2nd, there were so many more number of, or the highest number of users access the application. Okay, then based on those visitors, I can identify the number of users that I have to test for these transactions. Okay, but all those visitors will not perform the same transaction, right? For example, if it's a bank application, some people will log in and download the bank statement. Some people will log in and transfer amount. Some people will edit the passwords or account information. So so we need to identify which transaction was performed more. How will you identify which transaction is performed more? How will you identify which transaction is performed more? Generally how they identify is, which page is accessed more. Which page, there will be so many pages in our application, right? So based on the number of pages, based on the number of visitors accessing a particular page, they will identify which page was accessed more. For example, login page was accessed by 100 users. Download statement, or checking balance page was accessed by 500 users. Or changing password was accessed only by 10 users, because mostly people will not change those account information frequently. So by looking at the number of hits to that page, I will get the payload. Okay, I will get the payload for my transaction, for my test cases. Okay, so right, and okay, this is scenario one. When the application is already in production, now we are going to production, and we are going to database, and we are getting all this data. Okay, and then we are coming to a conclusion that, okay, this is my expected payload. Okay, and when it comes to scenario two, okay, and here in this case, the client does not know anything, and application is also not in production. So application is also not in production. That means it's a brand new application coming to performance testing. Okay, and also client does not know anything about performance testing. Okay, so in this case, what they generally do is, they try to get the competitor statistics and conduct the performance testing. For example, if there is a Flipkart, okay, if there is a if there is a, like, assume that Amazon is the new application which is coming for performance testing. Till now it is not there at all. Okay, it is not there in production, and even client does not know anything, and they came to us and asked, we have to performance test this application. Now, as we don't have the production data, we will see the competitor. Who is competitor? Let's assume Flipkart. We will see how, competitor statistics. Like, we, by using some network traffic utilities, they try to get the competitor statistics actually. Like, how much network traffic is, Flipkart is using and all, by looking at those data, they will get some, competitor statistics. Okay, in terms of, peak hours, on which hours, in which month, on, which day, number of hours, number of users accessed more. Okay, like that, which pages mostly accessed by end users and all. Okay, so by getting the competitor statistics, okay, they will get the number of users data for us now. Okay, this is scenario 2. If the client does not know anything, and and if the application is also not in production, this is how they do. Okay, they try to use some, Google Analytics. There is a tool actually. There is a tool, or there is a software called Google Analytics actually, which is very costly, and it will help us, in understanding, how many people are accessing different websites and all. So they use those kind of tools, and they try to get the information for us if it is for the first time and the client does not have any information. This is scenario 2. Scenario 3 is the client does not know anything about performance testing, and and the application is also not in production, and we don't have a competitor at all in market. We don't have the competitor in market. It's a brand new thing. Okay, when Swiggy was first, Swiggy, or was first in the market, let's assume that there is no other service provider like Swiggy. So, like, if I have to test for Swiggy application, if there is no competitor in the market, then how can I test? Like, how will I know that how many users might access my Swiggy application? Right? We will get these kind of issues, these kind of requirements as well, these kind of scenarios as well in our performance testing. So what should we do when the client does not know anything about performance testing and application is not in production and we don't have a competitor in the market? So then we try to understand the core business of the application. Generally they discuss, the business team and all the stakeholders, they generally discuss the core business of the application. They generally discuss the core business of the application and convert those business to online. For example, take the example of Swiggy only. If there is no competitor for Swiggy, then when we discuss about the core business, they will come to an assumption that, okay, normally people might, around, daily around 1 lakh people might, all over India, 1 lakh people might request for Swiggy. Okay, so out of something like, then we have to analyze, how many people are accessing online, okay, on daily basis. Let's assume take it 10%, take it 10% or 25%, by coming to an agreement. So by converting, how many users or number of transactions, from which region they are accessing the application, so we have to do that baseline test. So we'll be performing a baseline test here with the information that we are gathering now. Okay, by discussing with all stakeholders, by understanding the core business, and and assuming that 10% or 25% of them will do online business out of that core business. Okay, then we'll derive at the how many number of users, number of transactions and all. Here in this case, the key some of the questions are discussed, like, how many number of customers they have in the core business. Actually, how many number of customers they have in the core business. Okay, like, also we'll discuss, how many of them are going to register for online services. Okay, and how many of them are active users. Okay, how many of them are daily users, what are the peak hours of the business. Swiggy is not used mostly in, evening 4 to 6. They might not use mostly. peak time will be afternoon, afternoon and the, or late or dinner time, right? So by looking at all these statistics, they will come to a number. Okay, based on the above statistics, the number we derive the number of users and number of transactions. Okay, so we have to discuss all this with business analysts and and all the stakeholders. Okay, then these all people will finalize the NFR, non-functional requirement. Okay, so on a high level we understood, right, 3 scenarios. First scenario is if the application is ready in production. Second scenario is client does not know anything and application is not in production. And the third scenario is client does not know anything about performance testing and application is not in production, and we don't have the competitor as well in the market. So this is how the non-functional requirements are gathered. Okay, but most of the cases, scenario 1 will be there in most of your projects. Application will be already there in production, and in most of the cases, in some cases, scenario 2 will be there. Client might not know anything about performance testing, but
Sir, can you show one sample NFR, sir?
Yeah, I will share it across. I will share the NFR documents to you. Okay, I'll share the document to you, so you can go through that. It's a simple Excel kind of thing, Excel or Word document kind of thing, depending on the project. So they'll ask all those questions actually. What are the servers and all, or else tomorrow morning first thing I'll share the display the Excel sheet, or display the NFR document here, and also I'll share it across to you guys. And once the NFR is done, then it comes to test plan. Actually, I thought of taking separate session for NFR. Then I thought of anyhow time is there today, so I thought of completing this NFR today. Let's see, we'll discuss that tomorrow as well. We'll see what are those different parameters that we'll ask. I'll share that sheet tomorrow and we'll discuss that. Okay, some sample NFR I can show you. So then comes the test plan. Test plan, as we all know that it's kind of roadmap for our test. It can contains the objective of the test, scope, items out of scope, the procedure, the approach, what are the transactions that we'll perform, what are the different types of testing we will perform, load test, stress test, endurance test, what kind of tests we'll perform, which monitoring tools we are using, ALM version, okay, architecture, okay, and who is testing this, who is your manager, roles and responsibilities, environment, which environment we are performing, is there a receipt or is there any separate environment for performance testing, what are the risks, okay, what are the risks, what is entry criteria, we'll have that entry and exit criteria as well, and all the prerequisites and assumptions also we'll have in this test plan. It's it's similar to the functional testing test plan only. Okay, it's similar to the functional testing test plan only, but the content will change. The content will change. If you are aware of the test plan with respect to manual testing or functional testing, need not worry, it will be more or like similar only, right? So, and once the test plan is ready, we'll send it across to all the stakeholders, and then we'll get it approved. Okay, as part of performance testing life cycle, once the test plan is ready, we'll send it across to all the stakeholders and get it approved. If there are any changes to be done, we'll make it and we'll get it approved. And then after test plan, we'll start working on the workload model. Actually, we'll have a separate session for the workload model, because it's a kind of it's the heart of all the documents. Actually, it's a kind of I can say it as a heart of all the documents. Okay, and in this workload model, we will mainly discuss on how to test the application and what to test that application. How to test that application and what to test that application we'll discuss. Okay, so we'll have a separate session on that, which is very important. That's the reason we'll have a separate session. It will take complete one session for that. Okay, so these 4: POC, NFR, test plan, and the workload modeling. Okay, these four, okay, these four are kind of document model. All these are documents, right? The NFR is a document, test plan is a document, workload model is a document, POC is also similarly kind of document only. We'll prepare the POC and in sense, we'll prepare the document by doing some R&D kind of thing. Okay, but the first four are document related, document model related, and the right side, whatever you are seeing, once the workload model is ready, then we'll start scripting. We'll start recording, or scripting and making enhancements. Okay, and once the scripts are ready, we'll also parallelly we'll work with, parallelly we'll try to get the test data required for those scripts. Okay, and once the test data is ready, we'll go for scenario design and execution. And once the execution is done, we'll analyze it. Using and here I can say, scripting and enhancements, we'll use the VueGen tool. Scripting and enhancements, we'll use the VueGen component. Scenario design and execution, we'll use controller or the performance center. Analysis part, we'll use analysis tool, analysis component. And by analyzing, we'll do the reporting as well. Reporting and recommendations or suggestions or observations, whatever it is, we will share it with all the stakeholders. When I say stakeholders, it's the business team, clients, developers, everyone. So this is a complete performance testing life cycle, or the process that we usually follow in our performance testing project. Okay. So any questions with respect to the performance testing life cycle, or the servers, or the server architecture, or anything today?
Sir, how the POC will be, sir? Actually, to show the POC, you will do some basic load test, or what you show actually?
Yes. So suppose if it is a new application, altogether new application, and if it's a new project and it's a new team formed by you, okay, the new team formed by you, okay. So there is a requirement that that this application needs to be performance tested. So what generally managers or the business people will ask, okay, can you do some POC and let us know, which tool is best, something like that. So as part of that POC, we'll first try to understand the architecture, application architecture. What kind of application is that? Which technology they use to develop this application? Okay, or which communication mechanism they use to develop this application? And we have to do some practical, work as well there, right? While doing POC. So we'll have to script, or we'll have to record some critical business transactions, or some transactions we have to record it. Okay, for example, we will take at least 2 to 3 test cases. Okay, and then we'll try to record it, and we'll script it. Okay, when I say record it, we'll try to script it, and we'll execute as well. We'll execute as well with some minimal users. Okay, and then report all those response times and everything to client. For example, when we do POC, we'll assume that initially we'll assume that this we should have some understanding about different tools in the market. Okay, what will LoadRunner do? Which protocol LoadRunner will support? Okay, what will JMeter do? What will Neoload do? What will Locust do? Okay, we'll have to compare those tools as well. Which tool is best for which protocol. And when will we compare? When we understand what is the architecture that is followed in our project, what is the protocol that is being used. Okay, then only based on that I can get the tools. Okay, for this protocol, okay, this the application team is using this protocol. Okay, for this protocol, okay, I have these many tools in the market. Okay, for example, if the application which you are getting for POC is using Web HTTP protocol. For Web HTTP protocol, we have JMeter, LoadRunner, Neoload, and so many tools. So what I can do is, I'll make a note of it, which tool is best, which tool will have, which tool can fulfill my requirement. Okay, if JMeter alone is able to fulfill all my requirements, then I'll definitely go for JMeter. Okay, if you think that LoadRunner is best, then I can go with LoadRunner. Based on we have to record, and we have to do some sample execution. Then only we'll come to know.
Sir, as a perform tester, do I need to do all those things, or it will be taken care by the leads and managers?
As part of this performance testing life cycle, you know, this NFR, the POC leads can take this activity. You know, with the help of the team. You know, with the help of the team, I say as a combined team. You know, one person. Sometimes, you know, it depends on the project. If it depends on your manager, you know, if sometimes your manager can come to you and say, you know, hey, can you do some POC for this? Then, you know, you alone can do, or you can do along with your team's help or something like that. It's NFR and all, you know, NFR basically, you know, test lead will take up this activity. As a, if you are you know, if you are just a team member working on performance testing, you know, your main responsibility will be starting from scripting or recording the enhancements, or you know, in fact, the workload modeling. Sorry, your work involvement will be from workload modeling as well. And you know, the lead will take care of the NFR and the test plan. If you are an individual contributor in your project, then you have to work work in a complete life cycle. You will be participating right from NFR, test plan, workload modeling, scripting, you know, execution, analysis, reporting, everything. You have to participate if you are an individual contributor. It all depends on the project. If your project is following lead team member hierarchy, then, you know, lead can take up the NFR and test plan, and you know, team member can directly work on workload modeling, scripting, and test data and everything.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Sir, can you give me an example for web server and app server that you asked me a couple of minutes back?
Yeah, web server, you know, Apache, we have some Tomcat Apache web servers available, and we also have, you know, application servers as, you know, WebSphere, WebLogic. I think we also have something called JBoss. So these are some examples, you know, you can go through. I can give you a list if possible after the session. I can share the list as well. What are the different web app servers available in the market? But mostly, you know, they'll yeah, go ahead.
So for the demo session, you used a website, right? So what is the architecture for that? It's HTML1.
Oh, that's the actually the architecture. Sorry, that's the application given by Micro Focus only for our practice purpose.
Okay.
So basically, it is following the HTTP HTTPS protocol because it's a web application, right?
Okay.
So yeah, so it will. So when we are able to record, you know, suppose, you know, for example, suppose if there is a new application, okay, when you try to, okay, they say it is a web application, okay, they say it as a web application. What will you do? We generally try to record and see using web protocol, HTTP protocol, web HTTP protocol. We'll use it and we'll try to record it. Okay, and if the load runner tool is able to record all those events using that protocol, it means it is able to record, and that the protocol will work. Okay, and in very rare cases, you know, depending on some, you know, depending on some issues, some records might not get recorded, some events might not get recorded. In that cases, you know, you can switch for other protocols. If web HTTP protocol is not supporting, then mostly people will go for, there is a protocol called TrueClient. They'll switch over to other protocol which will record those events actually. So it all depends on, you know, that's why we need to have the complete understanding of the architecture, which protocol the architects they are suggested to the dev team, which protocol they are following, which mechanism they are following. So based on that, you know, we can take a call. So how will you know? By in the NFR document, in the NFR only you'll get all that information. So once you get the NFR, you know, obviously in the before scripting only, you will just do some, you know, normal recording, and you know, you'll just inform that client that, okay, this protocol is not working, or this is not working, this is working, or something like that. But mostly, you know, load runner tool will support all the protocols mostly. Load runner and, you know, JMeter will also support HTTP, HTTPS, Java, web services and all. But that JMeter might not support this SAP, okay, this Oracle and some other DB2 and some database related protocols. It will not support. So, but LoadRunner will support each and every protocol. How will you know which protocol it's supporting and all? If you open virtual user generator, okay, if you open the virtual user generator, I think there is some screen sharing. Okay, yeah, are you able to see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Are you able to? Yeah. So
Yes.
let's assume that just wanted to show you the protocols names here. Okay, see these are the protocols that LoadRunner is supporting, and no other tool in the market will support these many protocols. You see .NET, Citrix, each protocol has different usages, and as a performance tester you need not know all the protocols, and no performance tester in the entire world will know all these protocols. Hardly they will work on 2, 3 or 4 protocols max, because you will not get chance to work on all protocols, right? It depends on your company, and it depends on your projects. If you are working in one project, and if that project is long term project, and if you are there in the project for 1 year, and okay, in that 1 year you will be working on that similar kind of protocols, right? So you might not have that chance to work on different kind of protocols. But mostly, for all the web applications, they work on this protocol: web HTTP, HTML. Okay, this is web services. There is something called True Client. Okay, there is something called True Client. If that is a SAP application, there is a SAP protocol. Okay, there's some Oracle ODBC protocols, related to database. Okay, .NET, something like a file transfer protocol. If the data is being sent from client to server is only files, then I can use that FTP file transfer protocol. If the Citrix application, I can go for Citrix protocol. Okay, so these are some actually what do you say? The hard kind of protocols. Some very what I can say, demand in the market: web HTTP, Citrix, True Client. If you are good in these 2 to 3, then it's enough. Not more than that. Web services and web services also. So here we'll select the protocol, and then we'll click on create. That means we are selecting the protocol, and then we will start recording and performing our task.